everyone. You are very welcome to the show. The first in October, the first writer's block of October. And I'm absolutely delighted to have my guest with me today. Her name is Lindsay Harrison. She's an acclaimed author and screenwriter, a collaborative author and ghostwriter. And you will recognize many of the shows also that we're going to talk about today. Lindsay, you're very welcome to the show and welcome to Ireland.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here.
You're in Los Angeles, yes?
Yes, I am.
And how's it going over there?
I'm told that our COVID rate is declining, so I'm thrilled to hear that. You're not going to catch me out without a mask, that's for sure.
Oh, same here. Same here. I think we're all being very, very careful.
And shame on us, we're not. Just let's get through it.
I know, that's the best thing to do. So, look, let's have a talk first of all about this incredible career of yours. You seem to have started off in so many different genres that seemed to overlap. But I just love looking at your work from the 1980s. I have your resume here, and just looking at, for example, Fraternity Vacation. Tell us about this. I'll put it up here for people so they can see what we're talking about.
My God. Yeah, that was so much fun. I had just started writing for a living. And thank God I had several years in the Universal Studios steno pool in the early 70s when I moved here from Iowa. And so script form was so familiar to me, I could type them in my sleep.
Yes.
And so I'd written a few TV shows, and this producer came and said, would you consider writing a feature called Fraternity Vacation? And I said, well, I'm not sure how qualified I am, but I have an older brother. I know all about fraternities and guys and all that. And so I started writing. We had the best time. And it was really just a lot of fun. And the guys in it, Jim Robbins' first movie, which
Jim Robbins, yes.
Doesn't do a lot of bragging about it, but that's okay. I don't mind. I'm not insulted. But they shot it in Palm Springs, and here you had a bunch of young guys hanging out in Palm Springs, working, making money. They were adorable.
Fantastic. It was James Frawley who was the director on it?
Yes, Jim Frawley directed.
That was what, 1985?
Something like that. I think that's when it was released, yeah.
What was the next one? Take My Daughters, Please was 1988, wasn't it?
That was a TV movie. This absolutely darling executive producer called. And I had never written a TV movie for reasons I won't go into. I had an agent who claimed that I refused to write TV movies, which was preposterous, because who was I to refuse to write anything at that point? And so Brandon Tartikoff, who was head of NBC at the time, had this idea. And the executive producer, wonderful guy, and I did warn him, this is my first TV movie. And he said, well, it's not rocket science, so I think we'll be fine. So that was Brandon Tartikoff's idea. And lots of fun. I had just finished the second draft, which you're never quite done on the second draft. But all of a sudden there was a writer's strike. And I couldn't write a third or final draft or go to the set or, So I just crossed my fingers and held on. But it turned out well. What a cast.
So you'd gone feature movie to within a couple of years, you're doing a television movie. Did you personally find that there was a difference in the format, in the approach to writing a feature script as opposed to a screenplay, as opposed to a teleplay, I suppose, or a...
Not really. I loved writing TV movies, which is why I wrote several of them. And at the time, I remember the logic was people kind of looked for reasons not to make feature films, but looked for reasons to make TV movies, because the networks were all doing TV movies at the time and they needed product. So there was a certain luxury to that.
Right.
And yeah, they're long form, you know, both of them. And the TV movies kept coming and I kept saying thank you. And so I can't say I missed features, but, you know, I was so lucky that I kept...
These were wonderful. And I mean, Rue McClanahan again in this one, Kim Delaney, Deirdre Hall. I mean, it was the cast was fantastic in that movie.
Yeah.
This is all Lindsay Harrison, folks. So go into IMDb if you want to find out more about it. These are just fantastic. But I was just taking a look here. And for people who aren't familiar with the different names and differences in terminology, and, you know, I mean, we say screenplay, and then you've got teleplay, and then you've got creators, and then you've got, you know, writers, and then all these different hats. Some people might wonder how many of them overlap, and how different is it? Like, for example, we don't tend to use, on this side of the world, we don't tend to use the term teleplay a lot, but there would have been more usage of it in the States. And if you look at the credits for Lindsay here, I mean, you see all these different names coming up at different times. Did you find yourself having to, I suppose, wear 2 or 3 hats at the same time? Were you creating and writing teleplays at the same time?
Not really. It says producer, 2 credits. I am not a producer, so I'm not sure where that came from. And I'm told that there are 2 writers named Lindsay Harrison, and I don't know anything about the other one, but
what are the odds of there being 2?
I know. And on Amazon, it clearly says that I'm a teacher living in New York City.
Oh my gosh.
But I don't mind. I'll hide out here in Studio City and leave it alone. But
there are a couple that specifically mention you as creator. I just noticed here, for example, Cutters.
Oh, yeah.
They're all purposely. Does that make a difference to you as a writer?
Not really. I am grateful for any credit that I deserve. I'm not, you know, I don't want to claim to be anything that I didn't do. So, and like I said, I've never produced in my life. I wouldn't know what to do if I were offered a producer job.
So you're very happy to screenwrite?
Absolutely.
Right the way through.
I loved writing scripts. And
yes. And I mean, we have some fantastic ones here. I mean, you wrote for some very long-running series too, didn't you? For example, what was it, 8 episodes of Diagnosis Murder?
You know,
or 3?
I think 3.
3 episodes?
I think, yeah. And it sounds ridiculous that I can't necessarily remember, but it was a while ago. But those were fun, and I would get asked to do them, which was even more fun to not have to go pitch myself.
No. So the phone never stopped ringing at this point. It was
I had a wonderful agent, and he did a great job. Sadly, he's retired now in real estate, but he was just wonderful, and we were a great team. So
And I noticed there as well that so you were working with him during this period of 85 to, let's say, 90
till about 99, or 98, which is when I made a somewhat reluctant transition to writing books.
Right. But this grounding must have been incredible. I mean, you've got it, working on series. I think the 8 episodes I was talking about was The Young and the Restless, wasn't there? It was about 8 episodes for that one. That was going up to only a couple of years ago, wasn't it?
Oh, it's still on.
Is it still on?
Yeah.
My goodness. I mean,
and,
what a series. Very well known over here as well. Very well known in the United Kingdom.
Great. Well, and I was very lucky. I had a close friend who was an actor on The Young and the Restless, and we would go to Y&R functions and all that. And so I got to know a lot of the people, a lot of the cast members and producers and all that. And I had started watching the show in like 1985. So getting to come and write and knowing all those backstories and,
Yes.
As you know, because you're a writer, writing is about listening. And so I knew the voices, I knew their backstories. It was so much fun, and the stories were so interesting and soapy. And and then from there I got to write a few of the actors' memoirs, which was even better.
Yes, which we'll come to that now in just a second, because that point you made there about being a good listener, how that has followed you up to this present moment. I mean, really, it's not what you have to do even now. It's exactly the same, isn't it? Of these shows that you were involved in, I mean, and Venice running right up to now, the series Venice, which would stand out? Which would you say are you most proud of?
Oh, that's so hard to say, because I loved them, and but My Boyfriend's Back was a fantastic amount of fun with Sandy Duncan and Judith Light and Jill Eikenberry, and I took it.
Yes, Sandy Duncan.
Oh, fabulous! And I took that on the one condition: it's a one-hit group. Pure fiction, but a one-hit group from the 60s who split up and no one really knew why, who are asked to reunite for a retrospective.
Yes.
So my one condition, because they'd already signed these fabulous women, was I said, if you're going to do a retrospective, please could we do a retrospective? Let's just not have the Bouffants, our imaginary trio, standing on a stage with 6 people shot from the back looking like a crowd. Let's do one. And so they did. They got Gary Puckett and the Penguins and, Mary Wells sang my, and there stood the Bouffants and I watching this with our jaws hanging open. And I'm saying, you have to follow Mary Wells. How does it feel? And they were just blown away.
That's something I'd love to have done. Now it's just fantastic. As soon as I saw it there, I realized I knew it. I knew it well. My goodness.
So much fun. And Dead Husbands was great fun. That was John Ritter.
Yes, Dead Husbands. I noticed. I was just looking at that. What was Warren Taylor?
It was based. I wish I could take credit for the concept of that TV movie, but it was based on a book called The Last Man on the List.
Yes.
And they had to make it kind of a send-up because it was husbands getting murdered,
yes.
but they had to, because it was really kind of a clever idea, and they wanted to make sure that no one said, hey, wait a minute, that is a good idea. So it was mostly comedic and John Ritter and, but.
Very good. And a little ahead of its time, I think.
Possibly, but so smart. So when you have a great concept to work with and it's just sort of handed to you, it's just so much fun. And then they get John Ritter, of all people.
I know, John Ritter's fantastic.
Yeah, he just was.
Oh my gosh, utterly brilliant. You mentioned making a transition, and I suppose it's interesting to find out where the transition features on your resume too. For example, Sylvia Browne, who was the United States #1 psychic medium. And there were so many successes, 15 publications with her and 8 New York Times bestsellers.
Of course, she was on TV all the time, but she was, and it was a complete accident. I will always say I owe my literary career to Sylvia, because I had no intention of transitioning at all. My mom, my fabulous mom, had seen her on TV a lot and knew that she was not only down to earth, but pretty funny, and
that deep voice.
That voice. And just very down to earth, and not trying to overcomplicate the whole psychic thing. And she was gifted. She was famously wrong a few times, but she was genuinely gifted. So my mom, I was going through a tough breakup and blah, blah. And my mom said, why don't I give you a phone reading with Sylvia Browne for your birthday? And maybe that'll just kind of help. So I had this phone session with her. At the end of it, she said, I'm going to do something I've never done before. I'm going to give you my cell phone number. And next time I'm in LA, I'd love to get together with you, just as friends. So who's going to pass that up? So we went to dinner one night, and she was every bit as funny as she seemed. And out of nowhere, she knew I had written scripts, but out of nowhere, she said, let's write a book. And I said, okay, I have never written a book before. You don't want me. You're a big deal. Go get yourself a big deal author, and I'll be the first in line to buy it. And I have to paraphrase here, but she said, well, I'm psychic and you're it, so deal with it.
There was no saying no.
So,
oh my God.
Out of nowhere, I'm suddenly writing a book with Sylvia Browne, and our first book was The Other Side and Back. And it was fascinating. I mean, I said, bear in mind, I'm going to have to understand in order to write it. So explain to me, instead of just giving me these concepts, explain them to me, and let's make it like we're sitting at your kitchen table or mine and we're chatting. Because I don't like these very stiff, elevated, pretentious sometimes books.
Yeah.
Much on any subject. Let's not be pretentious. Let's just talk to people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was kind of her style anyway. And so we wrote The Other Side and Back. I kept waiting for somebody to call and say, you just don't have a clue what you're doing, do you? But I just thought, okay, we've got a deadline here, no kidding around. So here we go. And it was so much fun. And
how did you expect it to be so many collaborations?
No, I had no idea how long this would go on. I was just grateful for every one of them, and really fascinated by the subject matter, because, like I said, I don't think I could write a book that I didn't believe.
Yeah.
Her concepts were so interesting to me, and her examples were so interesting to me. And then a few times I got to experience how gifted she was. I never ever asked her for another reading. Nothing. I didn't ask her anything. But she would every once in a while, out of nowhere, demonstrate something with me. And she was good. She,
Yes.
Like I said, famously wrong a couple of times, but she was the real deal.
Yeah. And it's difficult because people do say things, but she's a human being at the same time. She may be gifted. Human beings get things wrong, I'd be on the same page as yourself on this. I have an interest in it as well. But it is fascinating. And I think what you've mentioned there about the fact that it really has to interest you, doesn't it? If you're going to take on the project.
It has to interest you, and it also, I can't imagine writing a memoir, for example, with someone I personally don't like.
Yes.
Not a chance.
That's just inconceivable, isn't it?
Yeah, I couldn't do it. So I've been lucky there too, but they kept offering more books, and the books kept doing so well. And then, like a couple of times I was wrong. She had proposed to the publisher Sylvia Browne's Book of Dreams. And I thought, really, another dream interpretation book? Aren't there like billions of those on the market? And so then she started telling me what would be in the book and her approach to dream interpretation and all that. It was fabulous. I was so wrong. And so glad that we went ahead and wrote it in spite of my stupidity.
And so many of them are still selling.
Yes. Oh, well, end of days. All of a sudden, because I don't do social media, and I got this email one day from a friend who said, "Did you know that Sylvia's book, End of Days, is a quote from that has gone viral?" I knew nothing about this. So they sent me a passage from Twitter or something, I don't know what it was. And she predicted COVID in the year 2020. And
my God.
And they said, "You don't remember writing that?" I said, "It was like 2004.
Yeah.
It was one of 14 books or however many."
Yeah.
No, and somebody telling you in 2004 something that's going to happen in 2020, who pays attention? But it spurred this whole new...
The word got around and the book started selling again.
It went
My goodness gracious me. Well, folks, go out and have a look.
Another book called
Have a look. My goodness. Isn't that just amazing?
A prophecy, I think we wrote in 2008 or something, and she was even talking about in 2020 people walking around wearing surgical masks and gloves because of this bronchial infection that was going to be spread all over the world.
Oh,
unbelievable.
That is phenomenal. I can't believe that. That is amazing.
I was as surprised as you are. I mean, I had no idea.
And you were involved in writing it. Oh my gosh. Well, that is just amazing. These things are there to make you smile.
If I had it in front of me, I would read you the passage because I was just blown away. And
I can't believe it.
I just sort of went, good one, Sylvia, good for you. And then people started looking up her other books and buying them, and it was fantastic and completely unexpected.
Now, so was Sylvia Browne definitely your entry point into memoirs and into, well, not so much memoirs, I suppose, there, because that's slightly different again, but was it the entry point into working with the celebrity who needed someone to collaborate with?
Not necessarily. I've come to realize that it's a good thing I don't really have a game plan, because if I had said to myself, I'm going to figure out a way to write books with Sylvia Browne, I wouldn't have known where to start. I've learned sort of stay out of your own way on a lot of this stuff.
Yes.
So because I'd written books and gotten some sense that I knew what I was doing, one of my friends on The Young and the Restless, thanks to my close friend who was on the show, was Jeannie Cooper, who played Catherine Chancellor.
Yes.
So Jeannie decided she wanted to write her memoir and came to me and asked if I would write her memoir. And I'd known her by then, well, since 1985, so this was 2010 or something. And so we wrote her book, and it was called Not Young, Still Restless.
Not Young, Still Restless. What a great name.
Oh, and
you could not run with that title.
That was Jeannie's idea. That was Jeannie's title. So God bless her. And and then along came Eric Braeden, Victor
That's
Newman.
right. So you've got two cast members from The Young and the Restless that you've actually collaborated on the memoirs. So Jeannie Cooper's Jeannie Cooper with Lindsay Harrison, HarperCollins, and then you have I'll Be Damned, a memoir.
Oh, Eric Braeden, yeah.
I'll Be Damned, a memoir, and that one is HarperCollins as well for anyone who's interested.
Yes, I've done, I think, 5 now with HarperCollins. Todd Fisher was HarperCollins.
Eric Braeden.
A wonderful woman, Dr. Jennifer Ashton, she's the ABC News health correspondent, and that book was called Life After Suicide. Her husband sadly killed himself. And the one that I just finished, that's coming out November 9th, is HarperCollins as well. That's Lana Wood's book, Little Sister, about her sister.
Are you able to talk about that now?
I can't talk about what's in it. I can tell you, please
oh, that's going to be so interesting. That's November, you say?
November 9th.
November 9th. Oh my goodness.
The weekend after Thanksgiving is the 40th anniversary of Natalie's death.
Yes.
Yeah.
My goodness. Oh, that'll be so exciting. I can't wait to read that. That'll be wonderful. And as you say, these are all, so your last publication there, I'm just going to jump a little bit there because my guest last month was the absolutely incredible George Chakiris.
Yes.
And I think his memoir that you collaborated with him on, his one was due for release earlier, but it got delayed, didn't it, until March of this year?
Oh, it was supposed to come out, the Spielberg remake of West Side Story was supposed to come out December of 2020. And the book was going to be released, of course, right around then. And Stephen wisely decided, since nobody could go to the theater in December of 2020 because of COVID, he would delay it a year. And so they just went ahead and put George's book out in March of this year.
And really, you would have to have them run in the same year, wouldn't it? It wouldn't make sense. You couldn't really have them a whole year apart.
Yeah.
And an absolutely wonderful book. I mean, I still have it here. This is a wonderful read, everybody. If you're interested, again, you've got Natalie Wood's book coming out as well, the one by her sister, Lana. So, I mean, that'll be Little Sister, my investigation into the mysterious death of Natalie Wood, November 9th, 2021. So that's a wonderful Christmas gift too. But I also have to, as a performer, I also have to recommend this. This is wonderful. What an incredible book.
Dream of a man. And that was
an incredible man as well.
Totally by accident as well. George and I, it turned out, have a mutual friend named Gino. And Gino called one day and said, "You may be getting a call from George Chakiris." And I said, "Well, it's a good thing you told me, because if I picked up the phone and some guy said, 'This is George Chakiris,' I would have said, 'This is Rita Moreno,' and hung up the phone." So it turned out George had just read the Tippi Hedren memoir and was telling Gino how much he enjoyed it. And Gino happened to say, "A friend of mine wrote that." So George called, we started having lunch, and we became pals. And then the Spielberg remake announcement came, and we decided, if we're going to write a book, this is probably the time to do it.
Yes.
And he's, as you know, shy, modest, no ego going on. And so he was not sure that anyone would be interested. And I said, "Yes, they will."
Oh my God.
I have to say, I've heard that from almost every person I've written a memoir with. Who would care?
What,
you know?
What is that, Lindsay? Is it, it's not a self-doubt because they know what they've accomplished.
Well, I think in some cases, when things happen to us, they don't seem that extraordinary. You know, they happen. But if you're standing outside of it, it's extraordinary. It's worth telling. And that's the only thing I can figure out. I mean, Sylvia did not have that problem. She didn't.
No, she didn't.
She didn't think, who cares? But for the most part, people don't get it, that what's happened to them is extraordinary until they sort of see
back.
the response to it. Yeah. And so it was the same way. It was, I danced in the chorus with Marilyn Monroe, you know, and then goes on to talk about Marilyn Monroe instead of himself, of course. And so it was like that, but we were great pals by the time we started writing together. So there was a great comfort level there.
Yes, and he praised you hugely in the interview. And you can see that that's very important. And obviously for people from the classic Hollywood era, although he would still have been, you know, we would play some of these people in classic Hollywood, but actually, you know, they were, what was he, 24 or something like that, 1961, 1962. You know, that's not really classic Hollywood. Classic Hollywood's earlier, but at the same time, we kind of placed them in that era of great film, great stories. And they're still there, and these people are still well and healthy and still have a lot to give. But for some reasons, one or two of them don't always feel that they have anything to give anymore. And that is so sad, and particularly in this pandemic, because you can see with these memoirs that you've been involved with writing, they've got so much to give.
Absolutely.
So much to learn from them.
He's in the most extraordinary shape.
Yes.
And he comes over and has coffee on my deck. And this was an adorable... I'm an old friend of Joe Mantegna. And I happened to mention that I had done George's memoir. And having no idea that would mean anything to Joe particularly, but he said, "Oh my God, George Chakiris, one of my idols." Yeah. He said, when I was 16, I saw West Side Story I have a purple shirt that I call my Bernardo shirt.
Yes.
And he said he got to meet George briefly once when Joe was doing a project with Amber Tamblyn, and Amber brought Joe to the Christmas party, and George happened to be there, and so they met briefly. And I said, well, I tell you what, next time George comes over, you'll be our special surprise guest.
Oh, he must have been made up.
And we hung out on the deck, and it was these two huge fans of each other's sitting there getting to know each other.
Can you imagine that? Oh my goodness. And you arranged it.
And all I had to do was pour coffee and peach iced tea. You know, it was just thrilling.
My gosh, isn't that fantastic?
I'll email. I took a picture of them together. Of course, I'll email it to you. It's so cute.
Oh my God, that would be so cool. I think they have so much to offer, particularly those who are still well. They're octogenarians. They're still well. They've still got it all. It's all there. It's all there. And as he said, when he was in the interview with myself, the passion never leaves. The passion for the work never leaves.
That's exactly right.
That's the same for writers. And
he's generous, and he's tender, and he's so dear. And it's just, I'm so lucky to be able to call him my friend as well as someone I wrote with.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yes, there are bonds with writing. There are incredible bonds that grow, aren't there? Because you're delving so deep into the person's past. And
they have to trust you. I won't sign a collaboration agreement without a non-disclosure agreement in it. You know, I want them to know right up front, you can tell me anything, and if it doesn't go in the book, it stays right here.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
So important. Yeah.
And it will. I would never sell someone out, because once they loosen up, they do start telling you stuff that they'll end up saying, let's not put that in a book.
Yes. And your gut tells you that as well, that this is not going to go in.
That's the end of it. It stays here. And if they don't want it in the book, it's not going to go in the book.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to fight with them about, no, but it's so juicy. No. If they don't want it in, you
won't do that.
No. And it's about their comfort level.
Yeah, for all of your clients and friends, as they often go on to be, but also, there is this sense as well of I suppose the older they get, the fewer people there are around for them to really trust, because the people that they've known from their past who were their friends, some of them are still around, but they're losing them. So to actually meet someone new and have that level of trust, it's a huge responsibility.
Yeah.
For you, and it's an important thing to get across to them that is how you perceive things. That your reputation is everything, and they understand that. They understand.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I have no desire to be famous, but I do want to be known as someone who's trustworthy and has integrity. And I'll make this quick, but my mom, I'm from a small town in Iowa. She lived there all her life. And she wrote, and couldn't have cared less about getting it published or anything, but she started writing this series of books called Recipes for Living.
Oh.
And she would just go to local people, friends, and salt of the earth people and say, I'd love to write your story. And of course, I don't have anything to write about. I'm just a farmer. I'm just a whatever. And she said, everyone is interesting. So let's just start. And she put, I think, 18 volumes together of Recipes for Living.
Oh my goodness.
And it's fascinating, just these ordinary people who have had some amazing triumphs and losses and struggles and challenges, and how you get through them and how you deal with them and how you survive emotionally and all that. And Recipes for Living is exactly right. And just because you've never heard of somebody doesn't mean they're not interesting.
Yes.
And it was so gratifying for these people to not just read about themselves, but to be able to give them to their children and grandchildren and and neighbors who you thought you knew, and you suddenly read what they've been through in their lives and you feel so much closer to them.
So when did she start doing this?
Oh, wow. Well, my mom wrote a pamphlet that I won't go into at length, but she called it to come alive at 85. And she could not bear to be unproductive.
Yes.
And so part of coming alive at 85 was she started doing projects like that. And when she was not done with the people, but she also started finding out there were a lot of war veterans from various wars living all around her. And nobody knew that they were veterans. They didn't talk about it. They didn't make a big deal of it. And so she started writing veterans books, we called them. And I can't remember how many volumes there were of those, but just the most touching, wonderful thing. And she
got them published. Clearly, this is where you get it from. But she got them published, and
really, she did them herself in Osceola, Iowa. And she would take them out to have copies made at the local computer supply store and Rock's place. And so she never had it in mind to publish them or make a dime off of them. She just did it for the joy of doing it and being productive. And
gosh, I mean, I'd love to read that pamphlet myself.
Oh, no, right?
Not that far off.
I'm closer than you are.
Oh, no.
And here's a bit of advice, having nothing.
How I feel.
Okay, my mom lived till she was 103. And she's astonishing. And she said to me once, because I was, I think, going into some meltdown about turning 65 or whatever it was, I don't know. My mom said, whatever age you are, always say the word only in front of it. Because she said, believe me, when you're 102, you remember when you were only 65, only 80, only 90,
what a fabulous mother.
Oh, she's the finest person I ever met, let alone got to grow up with. She and my dad both. And she's so right, because even whatever age we are right this minute, I mean, I'm 73, and I remember when I turned 50.
You are kidding me, Lindsay.
Oh,
I would have put you at 52.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you.
Only 52.
Only 52, see? But I remember.
Oh my gosh, this is obviously in the genes. No wonder you get on so well with George Chakiris.
Oh, exactly. When I turned 50, and I thought, oh my God, because I remember when I was growing up, anybody 50 and over was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I remember that. She said that, and that was when she said, say only in front of it, because she said, I'm 2, that was only the first half of my life. So, and she did say she never appreciated those ages that she was along the way, because she thought they were so old until when she turned 100 and said, that's just ungrateful to say, oh no, I'm 90, she said,
I know.
only 90, only whatever age.
Only 90.
Oh, there's Tippi
Brilliant.
Hedren.
We've a lot to learn from them. So
Oh,
much to learn from them, really. And their mindset is perfect, really. And we're losing this. I'm listening
yeah,
to myself and I'm listening to friends, complain on my grandmother never did this. My mother never did this. We have to change the chip. Seriously change them.
right.
But
Oh,
thinking about people who are now a similar vein, Lindsay, I thought that there was another Tippi Hedren book that you might have been involved with also. But this is the one, Tippi, a memoir.
yes.
This is the one that what was it, 2016, was it, that you, let me just double check the date, Tippi, a memoir, 2016.
Yes.
And it's HarperCollins again.
Yes. And talk about a fantastic woman. Oh my God.
Oh my God. I was in her house, but she wasn't there.
Oh no. Oh, did you?
It was terrible. It was terrible. I lived in Spain and she was living in Mijas.
Yeah.
Southern Spain.
And now, she lives at her preserve with 28 or 30 lions and tigers up there. And that was set up through my agent, my literary agent. So I had not met her. And I drove up to Shambhala, where she lives. And some of these people, you have no idea who you're going to be meeting. And do you know the name Norma Desmond?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And you just think, what if this is like another Norma Desmond here, where she's weird? I got out of my car in the parking lot, and of course, there are huge enclosures of lions and tigers as you walk to the house, and they're mesmerizing and beautiful. And everywhere, there were ravens, all over the place, and swooping around and shrieking and making those noises.
Ravens. Wow.
And so she opened her front door after I rang the bell. And at that moment, one raven just swooped right past my head. And I thought, let's just cut through all this. I said, gesturing toward the ravens, this is a little on the nose, don't you think?
Yeah, the birds.
And she laughed. I was so grateful and relieved that she
was waiting for a drop of blood to come down the forehead.
I know, right? And it turned out, that ravens eat red meat.
Oh,
and so they were there to scavenge the food of the lions and tigers. Tippi had nothing to do with it except bring in the lions and tigers. So, but the fact that she left let me know this is not Norma Desmond. I'm okay here. And so she's fantastic, just a wonderful, brave, strong woman with a great sense of humor.
I'd love to have met her. You're so fortunate. I mean, to have got that close and didn't manage to do it. It must have been amazing.
It was. And I can honestly say shame on me for any day I wake up in the morning and don't say thank you. And I do. I am so grateful.
I particularly loved the Todd Fisher memoir.
Oh.
And really very, very good, because it showed Todd Fisher in a completely different light to what I understood him to be. We feel as though we are connecting with the person that you're representing.
I feel it's about listening.
Yes, listening,
more than about writing. And I don't care who it is. I want to know who's in there. I care so much less about credits than I care about who's in there.
Well, I have the book here. Actually, it is just a wonderful book, everybody. If you're interested, and if you're interested in obviously a gentleman who has had a lot of time to think about the way he was reared, and the true characters of his sister and his mother.
He is a lovely, smart, down-to-earth, adored his mom and his sister,
Yeah.
would have taken a bullet for either one of them. And like I told you, he's just a jeans and t-shirt guy.
Yeah.
And I had to put the poor guy through, tell me about those 24 hours when Carrie died and then your mom died. Oh my God, you know. And he, of course, was sobbing, and I kept saying, I'm so sorry to have to ask you this, but we know we have to. And so, and that's another place where you become a friend, you know, as opposed to just standing off to the side, jotting down their story. It's funny that it's become my habit that the first question I ask when I'm sitting down with someone to start their memoir, just to cut through the, let's not do your IMDb page. And, oh yeah. And I always ask them to be honest, because we've read those memoirs that we know this is not true. And then I have no interest in finishing it. I always start with, tell me about your dad. And that somehow just seems to cut right through the IMDb page and all that nonsense, because everybody's got a story about their dad. And like when I first asked Jeannie Cooper, she said, why, you knew him as well as I did. Well, there's a story. Because obviously I never met her father. So we've opened that up. George, I said, tell me about your dad, and his eyes filled with tears. And like I said, it's just a way to set the tone. And when Todd had to tell me about that 24-hour period, and he was crying, and of course he was, and we had to get through it, and I couldn't just sit there and say, well, wow, bummer. You know, I mean, it's like, by then he was my friend. So
he must have felt so left, you know.
Oh, of course.
So abandoned, and to have to arrange 2 funerals in the space of that short period of time,
and
then face into the grief. You know, and I remember thinking afterwards, when I was watching the scenes of him being stopped after the funeral by media and having to roll down the window and just speak off the top of his head. And this man has had no time to think. And what we have in the book are his thoughts and his thoughts.
Exactly.
And it's a totally different person, but it
hard.
Is the real person.
Yeah. And Debbie had an enormous heart, and Carrie had an enormous heart, and Todd, you know, with that upbringing, for him to come out so normal, it's kind of canny. It's like Sylvia's granddaughter is a friend of mine. I've known her since she was 5. She's the most gorgeous, wonderful person, and she's normal. And I keep saying, you are such a freak of nature to have come out normal. All that. I don't know how you did it, but anyway, just, digging inside these people and sharing them, and just staying away from the ones you don't like.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what, just, I mean, you've enlightened us there to a certain amount of your process when you, even that seems to be a very clinical term to use, because that's really not how you go about it, I know. But there will be an approach that you'll take.
I mean, sometimes the structure has to be a little forceful. If something comes up that's a little out of chronological order, but it's relevant, throw it in. But
yes. As you say, you have to get out of your own way, don't you, and not have a plan. One of the things I found very interesting is that with some of the types of people that you've been working with, particularly the older ones, unlike the young people of today who have a plan for everything. they haven't always had a plan. What they've had is a passion for what they do, and they show up.
Yes, yes. Showing up. I've never missed a deadline. And it's part of, I think there's a great deal of integrity that's entrusted to you when you're hired to write a book. And part of it, no lies, no making excuses.
Delivering.
Delivering, but also, and keep the non-disclosure agreement sacred, but be someone who's known for being reliable.
So you're very different. I'm listening to you, and I'm listening to something totally different to what you often hear from other writers who are with agents, and they'll say, I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want this, and it goes on and on and on, and you start saying, I wonder what they do actually. Whereas your approach seems to be, for example, there's a huge leap from writing the kind of memoirs that you're talking about there to, for example, the doctor that you were talking about there and her life after suicide.
Yeah.
That's a completely different type of project.
Yes.
It has to be dealt with sensitivity as well. But
except, again, who's in there? It's has nothing to do with me. Who's in there? This woman who went through this horrible thing. A self-published book that I wrote with my doctor and friend. His name is Dr. Sandeep Kapoor. And he was Anna Nicole Smith's doctor and was brought up on 6 felony counts after she died and acquitted across the board. His practice is still thriving. He's wonderful. And
Trust Me, I'm a Doctor was the book.
Trust Me, I'm a Doctor, with his updated mugshot as the cover photo.
I saw that. And that also, I don't have a publisher for that one.
That was always intended to be self-published. And he just wanted to. And publishers, of course, aren't always interested. And you can spend 6 months, write your book treatment, because they don't read manuscripts, publishers. Write the book proposal, wait 6 months for it to get to the top of the pile on their desk. Or you can go ahead and write it. He just wanted to go ahead and write it. And again, you getting inside there, getting past this whole celebrity doctor, whatever thing.
Yes.
And who's in there? And a lot of times you're very pleasantly surprised when you find out who's in there. And don't lose your sense of humor. And pick your battles is a big one, because I've gotten a lot of notes that I just thought, that is the dumbest thing I've and you just, for the most part, I believe in cooperating, but if one is completely unacceptable, then speak up. But you'll also be glad you kept your mouth shut about those little ones that you can work with. And again, trying to keep it conversational, trying to keep it warm, and it's you and me at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee.
Is there a difference in the United States in how a writer who works in collaboration with, another celebrity figure, and it's basically their name first, in collaboration with, and the ghostwriter, are they separate? Are they viewed as being slightly separate? How has that evolved in modern times?
Not that I know of, but I've never really delved into that. Like Sylvia said, we'll just put with Lindsay Harrison. She was trying to get me to change my name to that. With Lindsay Harrison, people could just call me with. And then she wanted my name on the cover, and then other people I've collaborated with or written for put it inside. I don't care. I don't care if it's on the cover or not. There may or may not be ghostwriters who leave their name off entirely.
Yeah.
I don't.
So it's not a thing. It isn't that there's been a shift of
Not
any
that
kind. This is just something that has evolved in your experience. This is what they've preferred to do, and this is what's ended up happening.
And if I think there's a theory among publishers, and I can't stress I think enough, but that if it's just the subject's name on the cover and it implies that they wrote it, then it's more popular than if there are other names on the cover. I have no preference whatsoever. And if somebody said, I don't want your name on it at all, that's fine too. Just here's where to send the check, and
That's practical as well.
A point comes.
So where from now on, where do you see yourself going? You've got this new book coming out now that you've collaborated with Lana Wood on, and it's obviously bringing you to the end of 2021. How do you see 2022 going?
Well, I have one friend, a cast member on The Young and the Restless. She's a bit of a procrastinator. So we've been working on her memoir for years. And then we had to add an epilogue because she added a couple of grandchildren that weren't there. Yeah. And and she's just been through the loss of her husband. So we have to add to the epilogue. And I'm happy to do that. She's wonderful. Her name's Jess Walton, and she's going to self-publish. She doesn't want any of this publishing notes, blah, blah. She wants it her way. And so we're doing that. And then November 1st, or another memoir, I think, will be self-published by, he's an old friend and a major league procrastinator. So I can't begin to tell you how long
it's going to take.
or at this, but he ran into an awful legal situation that on June 30th he was officially exonerated, and after years of, I keep saying hire a publicist because they sure publicized it when this happened. Now that it's been established, it didn't happen at all. So
yes, very important to do, I would have thought.
Absolutely. And so we're starting that again on November 1st, and it'll take as long as it takes. And then I keep, like I said, trying to stay out of my own way because I'm only 73.
You're only 73. Come on. There's a big future out there waiting for you. You've got to come to Ireland. You've got to come to Britain. Have you ever been over here?
I've been to London.
Well, you've got to come over here too. I tell you, the pen will never leave your hand.
Well, I'll bet. I bet that's
We're a nation of storytellers.
Oh, well, for what it's worth, I have an Irish plumber who I adore. And he, for years, he's the only plumber I will ever call with the most gorgeous, like yours, Irish brogue. And not come to the house without several stories, So, and I love it. So.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, look, Lindsay, this has just been an eye-opener talking with you today, and it's been wonderful just chatting with you. My guest today, everyone, all the way from LA.
Oh yeah.
Lindsay Harrison, and
it's a promise. I will email you that picture of Joe and George.
I would love to see that. That would be so cool to have. That would be absolutely so cool to have. And also, just you can tell that she's a wonderful collaborator. And as we all exit this pandemic now, I think some of the mindset that she's just revealed to us there, it's I think where a lot of us are actually going. I think the penny has dropped, that we have to stop planning, start looking at what the universe sends us, start getting in touch with what we're passionate about again, start being creative.
That's right. And we're all in this together. So
we're all in this together. Absolutely, we are. Lindsay, thanks so much for being on the show.
So much for asking me. This is my first ever. And
it's your first ever Zoom interview like this on this kind of platform. And you're a star at it. Don't turn them down in the future.
Thank you, young lady. Thank you.
We send you our love from Ireland.
And love from LA.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.